The second part was the Tom Trbojevic story that you were talking about, the possibility of him signing an extra extension of 1-year contract with Manly Sea Eagles. What's the update on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. That story's now on the Daily Telegraph website where a couple of weeks ago, Manly and Tom Trbojevic were locked in discussions for a 3-year extension.
Okay.
He's off contract at the end of next year. So, but the talks broke down regarding a sense of the fact that the Trbojevic camp felt that Manly changed their offer in terms of the money value. So they'd all but agreed to a 3-year extension around that 950 mark, right? He's on about 1.25 now.
Right, okay.
So a bit of a drop, right?
Yeah.
And Tom was happy. Tom knew that he was in for a haircut considering the amount of games that he's missed, and he probably hasn't played the most consistent football that he would have liked, right?
I still find that strange, but keep going, yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
but when the offer came through officially, it was $100,000 a year less than what he'd agreed to. So talks broke down. Tom went on holidays. He's come back from holidays this week, and they've sat down, and it's Tom's camp, which has initiated a 12-month extension. So contracted for next year.
Yep.
Don't worry about the 3 years. Let's just do a 12-month extension.
Yep.
Around that, I'd say around that 950 mark.
You know why I'm laughing, don't you?
Mm.
No, the story's great, what you're saying, but I'm just thinking, as you know, they said they've come back and gone, no problem. You know how they can't talk about R360, but they had it on their forehead. Go on. Go on.
He's come back, but I feel like, I think it's a bit of a win-win situation for Manly, the short-term deal.
Yeah.
Because
I think it is too.
Because what it's going to do, it's going to give Tom an opportunity to back himself to reclaim the form, which saw him become one of the highest-paid players in the game.
Yep.
Right? So he's got, and then if he doesn't, well, then his value is not going to be even near 900.
100%.
It'll be less.
100%.
Right? So, and you know, Manly will probably have a new coach by then with Anthony Seibold. Got a couple of years left, so there's lots to unpack with the Manly
And I think
Seagulls
it's good for it's better
Trbojevic.
for Tommy as well, especially with this R360. I'm being serious about that, but also the fact that he can back. He's backing himself. He's going right. Okay, all right. Forget that. Let's back myself. I bet that and then everyone's a winner.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've had my fun. We get into the round ball game with you after this.
Yeah.
Socceroos. That's Socceroos. Let's start with the Socceroos.
We'll start with the Socceroos. I thought it was well, for everyone who doesn't know about football, we have international breaks.
Yep.
And ironically, this is the last one that's going to be in October ever, because from now on for next season, they're going to have an extended September one, so you don't have to have an October break, okay? So there's 2 weeks.
Why? Like what?
So instead of having September break, then October, they're going to have just an extended, a longer September one to get all the internationals in. They're trying to get the calendar as is that
good or bad?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Because you just want to get it, like, you know, you want to, when you're international mode, you want to get that done. You want to get back to your club. Clubs are paying your wages. They don't want you coming back injured or fatigued or sort of down because you lost. So I think that's a good one. So it was international week these last couple of weeks. Obviously, on Stan Sport, we're showing all the UEFA games, and quite a few teams did well. Scotland did very, very well. Croatia look as though they're going to qualify. England have qualified. Norway done exceptionally well. Spain have done well. Portugal just missed out on qualifying automatically, but they should do by next round. But the story all around the world was the Cape Verde story. This is an archipelago just off the east coast of Africa with a population of 550,000. So that was an outstanding story. Now, the Socceroos, who have already qualified, they're one of the 23 teams, I think it is now. Is it 23 or 28? Have a look at that, Marky. Who have qualified, played 2 of the host nations, who will be seeded. So there's 48 teams this time, so everybody knows, 4 pots of 12. Pot 1 will be the top-ranked teams.
Why are they called pots for?
Oh, whatever, groups, whatever.
I know, but
pots, because they actually are a pot. You put your hand in and you pull it out. In that pot 1 will be the big boys, okay? But plus the 3 host nations, which are Mexico, Canada, and the United States. So this is a wonderful experience for the Socceroos to play against. They beat Canada. They played a typical Tony Popovich way, which I really like the fact that he is realistic enough to know that he's much more comfortable playing that way, coaching that way, and he believes that he's got the weapons to do that. And he's had a great success record with it as well. Up until the United States game, they were, 11 or 12 games unbeaten. They defended for the majority of the game. 2 ways in our game to control the opposition. Attacking-wise, keeping possession, putting pressure on them, penning them in, this, that, and the other. Or from a defensive perspective, where you drop back a little bit and you force the other team into other areas. And much easier in our sport, say, for example, in comparison to rugby league, to defend a little bit of a goal. Can you imagine rugby league, they had to score in between the posts all the time?
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of, it's easier to do it like that. Plus you got a goalkeeper there as well. And he likes to do the latter, the defensive way, and he did that. And Mo Toure and Nestor Iracunda, they came on, both of them, against Canada and have both played a part in the goal. Against USA, a little bit of different story. USA are a better team than Canada. But we had the really good side of a young player called Jordi Bos, who's been doing wonderful things with Feyenoord in the Eredivisie in the Netherlands. Scored an opening goal. Unfortunately, for him and for Australia, America came back and scored 2 other goals. But some really good things to see there as well. Another special mention for the goalkeeper, Paul Izzo, who plays for Renders in Denmark. He played very well. Matty Ryan's still number 1. He played in the game against the USA. But you need to know in these situations, if things go wrong, have I got someone to rely on? Well, in Paul Izzo, he showed against Canada, you've got somebody definitely to rely on. So that's really, really good. So all looking well. And it's important as well that Tony Popovic can try different players. I think he's pretty made up about his first 11 and the squad, but there'll still be a few places left, both in the squad and the starting 11. And he needs to know that he's got every base covered when it comes to the real stuff. The draw will be made on December 5th for the whole World Cup. It's their first time ever, extra 104 games, 48 teams, 12 groups of 4. Top 2 in each group will qualify automatically, plus the 8 best third place teams. So really looking forward to it. And all the leagues are starting again this season. Two games of the round will be in the Bundesliga. Bayern Munich are playing Borussia Dortmund. That's always a huge clash. And obviously Monday morning here at 2:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, Liverpool versus Manchester United. And we're all back this week on Stan Sport Dinding with the Premier League. So please be tuning in. So there you go. Anything else? I think
you could have
we're
said
going to get on with James Dodd.
We've
got James Dodd come to the A-League. And the Australian Championship started last week. That was outstanding. There was a really good vibe. I know, but there was a really good vibe last week with the proposed second division, which is played in a sort of a Champions League way. Really good vibe. Congratulations to all those old clubs. Really, really enjoyed it. And the local A-League starts on, tomorrow night, Friday, right? When Adelaide United play Sydney FC at 7 p.m. And then after that, Brisbane Roar play Macarthur at 9:05 p.m. our time. Well, their time is 8:05. And that's what I want somebody to explain to me as well. Why is Queensland still have the normal time and us and Victoria and Tasmania go to daylight? So I don't understand that, especially after just being there. Does anyone know? Can somebody call in or text in, yeah?
Boz, as a producer of a radio show in both New South Wales and Queensland, I can tell you, it's a nightmare. It's not fun. 28 teams have qualified for the World Cup so far.
It is 28 then. It is 28. There you go.
How does this sound for the hardest group? This could be the hardest thing that Australia have.
All right, go.
So you could have a group of France, Norway, and Italy with Australia.
All right.
These are projections.
Also, but you could also have
Canada, Uzbekistan, and Cape Verde.
Correct. There you go.
So there you go. It's the draw on the
Look, I think we'll definitely qualify for the knockout rounds. And when it comes, there's obviously an extra knockout round this time. There's a round of 32 before the round of 16. And then when it comes to the one-off game and the knockout, and Tony Popovic has done it before against all the odds when he took Western Sydney Wanderers to the 2014 Asian Champions League, complete underdogs, and played in a very, very similar way. And our boys are very fit, and they're great when it comes to being an underdog. They've seen that before. So I'd watch out. It was a really good feeling about the Australian national team at the moment, the Socceroos, yeah? So really looking forward to that. Looking forward to the draw as well. So that's going to be great.
What about the Premier League? We spoke with Sam Phillips earlier, but a bit more in-depth now on Ange.
Well,
where's he at?
Basically, 7 games into his tenure, and not one win yet. That's pretty much sums it up. Now, the 2 outside games of those 7 games, the first one against Arsenal, no problem losing. Last one against Newcastle away as well, no problem losing because, Real Madrid lost to Arsenal last year. Newcastle, it's a formidable place. Newcastle's one of them places if you go and win, you think you can win the title, yeah? So, but the 5 games in between were all resultable. Out of those 5 games, only 2 draws. Real Betis away, which is pretty good. They're 4th in Spain, and they got to the final of the 3rd-tier European competition last year. And the other one, I think it was Burnley at home. I'll check that for you right now, which they drew against. All the other games were losses. So, look, listen, there's only so much any owner of any sporting team can go. Now, Evangelos Marinakis, who also owns Olympiakos in Greece, who have been very successful, he's put his money where his mouth is in terms of Nottingham Forest. He's brought them back to the Premier League. He's built them a new training ground. He's talking about, rebuilding parts of the stadium to take the capacity completely. This is a grand old club. This is a club that's won what's called the Champions League, now used to be called the European Cup, twice. So they've got a magnificent tradition. They also had one of the greatest managers, the late Brian Clough, of all time. And their supporters had their best season in 29 years last season. They were 7th in the league, only 1 point off 5th, which would have taken them to the Champions League. They qualified for Europe for the first time in 29 years. They got to the FA Cup semi-final. The manager was loved. Nuno Espirito Santo, the Portuguese manager. He had a bit of a clash with Marinakis at the end of last season when they lost the game at home to Leicester, which they should have won. Marinakis came down on the pitch. And since then, the relationship broke down, but still the fans loved him. So when it came that he left and he went straight to Ange, there was always going to be a lot of scepticism. Completely different to when he went to Tottenham when the previous manager, Antonio Conte, who now manages Napoli, was a fantastic player in his own right, but he managed Napoli, won the Serie A in Italy, the title last year, and they're on top of the table this year. He was very unpopular with the fans and obviously with the hierarchy, so it was completely different here. Ultimately, it gets decided by results. Now, Ange, as we know, plays in a very front foot, attractive, very open style. Nuno Espirito Santo was complete opposite. So those players would have been drilled by him for the last season, and especially in pre-season, to play this way. They are suited to play in this way, but after he lost to Arsenal in his opening game, Ange turned around and said, it won't be 2 months, it won't be 2 weeks, it'll be lucky to be 2 days where I'm going to start to, put my footprint, like I was talking about Arnie Slot, on the team. It's always very dangerous.
Yeah.
So can you imagine, can you imagine after 3 games in the NRL, all of a sudden, let's take a hypothetical, Craig Bellamy, who, as we know, manages in a certain way and coaches in a certain way, right? For whatever reason, decides to step down. And they go get a coach who's the complete opposite. And he then tries to change the team without having the benefit of being able to bring players in because the transfer window is closed. Yeah. It's a very dangerous period. So ultimately, there's 6 more games to the next international break. This will determine, in my opinion, how he goes. If they get beaten heavily, for example, they've got Chelsea at home, then they've got Porto, who are a good side from Portugal, at home in the Europa League on Wednesday. Then they've got Bournemouth away. Bournemouth are 4th. They're flying this season. Then they've got Manchester United after that, and at home. Then they've got Sturm Graz away. They should be right with that Europa League, although we did say that about a team from Denmark they met called Midtjylland, who ended up beating them. And then Leeds at home. If, for example, he doesn't win a game during that period, I think he's gone. Okay. But I think he will win. So it's just a matter of how many games he's going to win. And also, it's a matter of Evangelos Marinakis seeing through and having the patience to see through what he's begun, because a lot of supporters are starting to turn on him. And as one of my old chairmen used to say, the late Sir they used to call him Deadly Doug because of how he was with managers, the late Sir Doug Ellis, he used to say to me, once the fans start turning on myself and my companions, i.e. the board and the boss, then he goes, that's when the manager goes. Yep. Yeah, so there you go.
And would it be the end of the line for Ange in the Premier League?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think you'll get a team around that level. It would be a little bit less than Nottingham Forest. Although it must be said, Nottingham Forest a season and a half ago were on the verge of getting relegated. This is where Nuno done so well. He steered them clear of relegation. Last year he got them to 7th. But it'll be around that mid-table type of team because people want to take another look at him. And there'll be some people the brand of football that he plays is always somebody out there that basically will want that for the club. The other thing to remember as well, he was also able to adapt last season and play in a completely different way and win the Europa League. So it won't be the end of the line, in my opinion. But he might want to go and try something different. He might want to go to Spain. He might want to go to Germany. He might want to go to Italy. You might want to go back to Scotland. You don't know. Yeah. So you might want to try something different. So there you go. In terms of all the other games, just quickly coming up this weekend, if you need me to break this, just tell me. Obviously, the 10:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, our game is Nottingham Forest. That's the kickoff versus Chelsea. All these times are kickoff times. Sunday morning early at 1 a.m. Brighton Hove Albion versus Newcastle. Exactly the same time, Burnley versus Leeds. Crystal Palace play Bournemouth. Manchester City play Everton. Sunderland play Wolves. All those games are at 1 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. And at 3:30 a.m. there'll be Fulham versus Arsenal. And at midnight then on Sunday night, Tottenham Hotspurs versus my beloved Aston Villa. And then 2:30 a.m., like you said, the game of the round, Liverpool versus my beloved Manchester United as well. And Tuesday morning...
When did I say that?
I know. Tuesday morning, the last game of the round, West Ham will take on Brentford, but that will be at 6 a.m. kickoff. So that's for everybody to know for this weekend.
Yeah, well, there's obviously, you mentioned the fact that we're going to look at R360. What was your first thoughts on it?
Well, my first thoughts were, it always goes back to the fact that I try to understand that's why I try to listen to everybody in any situation. So I try to hear. Now, we haven't had much information out from the R360. And my first thought is let's see the reaction. So there wasn't a great deal of reaction. You know, a lot of people were saying that I know in both rugby union and NRL here are sort of a little bit, not dismissive, but my first thought always goes back to World Series cricket.
Yeah.
And what happened when the establishment basically took on Kerry Packer and Kerry Packer won. And it did improve cricket when they came, and also it came back together. Now, I wasn't in the country during the Super League wars.
Yes.
You'll probably be able to explain more about that. There'll obviously be a lot of lessons learned, and it'll bring up a lot of bad memories. But yesterday, the draconian punishments that were announced by Peter V'landys, it kind of hit me between the eyes. So a couple of things that I thought of straight away. This is obviously a little bit more of a threat than basically being a game out of a game out of a
cereal
box, or you said a McDonald's Happy Meal.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more serious than that. The other thing then you start thinking about from, because I'm a player at heart.
Yes.
You start thinking about how can we alleviate it going to war, because no one wins when you go to court. So to be fair, lawyers will make a lot of money, and so they should, because they do a great job. But you try your best to not let it go to that stage. So from a player's perspective, you start thinking about things like when they say 10-year bans, you start thinking, okay, well, in terms of, they're worried about it being used as a bargaining chip. I think you've actually made that by saying these draconian bans. You've probably used that as a bargaining chip already. Because if I was now a player, I'd be saying, look, listen, if you give me the right amount of money, which I can retire on, no problem, I'll still come here.
Yeah.
I can understand from the rugby league's point of view, because they've been doing brilliant. The crowds, the ratings, everything is through the roof. They're looking to negotiate a new TV deal. So they're sort of thinking to themselves, well, it's sort of like a rugby union concept anyway, so what's it got to do with us? The thing what it's got to do with is that you do have possession of some of the best athletes in the world for that game, which is rugby league, which is not it's not easy to make the transition, but people have made that transition. So there's a whole lot of other things to start thinking about. I started making some calls, so we'll try to get somebody on next week from a legal perspective. The majority of the legal people, I must say, that I spoke to, I know Andrew Abdo said today that they've taken legal advice, but the majority of legal people that I spoke to said good luck with, basically it being a restraint of trade if you're going to enforce that. But I can understand where the NRL is coming from. I can also understand where the players are coming from. What we need to hear, but the thing is that they're being very quiet, is where R360 is coming from. Because if they're, and we've seen this in a lot of sports, right? We saw it in golf. We've seen it in other sports. So I think the bottom line, as we know, it comes down to money. And I think if you're going to promote your sport, which it has been, it's gone to a different level, the NRL, okay? And it's starting to become more and more palatable to the rest of the world. We see Vegas and that. And we know what a great product it is. Well, the administrators, like in any sport, they do a magnificent job to help the sport if they do it right, to take it to a different level. But it's the actual product, the players, that actually take it to that step. Now, they must be looking at, say, my sport, football, other sports around the world, sort of think to themselves, still really, in reality, they're still relatively not as good. I wouldn't say poorly, because that's wrong. They're not as well paid as some of the other sports, and their career span is actually shorter. So when I started thinking about things like, when I saw stories about possible rumours of the NRL perhaps purchasing the Super League, or, doing this, doing that, I sort of think to myself, even then, why don't you put that money to the players? Now, there's an argument, because I know administrators go, oh, that's money going out the game, but that's your product. And these boys and ladies, right, they got maybe a maximum 10-year career because of how hard the sport is. So I think you could alleviate a lot of things by turning around, because, when you talk to players who were involved in World Series cricket or this, that, and the other, it was never sort of like, there's no one that I've spoken to who have been in this situation where it's like pure greed. Like, so like these new competitions way back then, say, might have been offered, say, $1 million. The present person might have offered you 300. And you're like, listen, I really want to stay with the present, but you can at least give me 600. So there's got to be a compromise. That's how they can alleviate it, in my opinion, by actually going to these players and making them offers that are worthy of the status that they've actually put them upon and what they're achieving. They've achieved these record crowds, record ratings. Like I said, it's to do with a lot of things, but the main portion is the players and the fans. Administrators have done a great job. Peter V'landys and Abdo have done magnificent since they've come in. So far as I'm concerned, they've taken to a different level, but they should just bear that in the back of their mind. And Peter V'landys has obviously had experience, you could say on the other side of the coin, with the Everest, right?
Mm.
Right. So he, with what he's done with the Everest, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a great disruptor.
He's he's done absolutely brilliant. Well, now it's a little bit different. So I can understand them coming out like that, but it's sort of really opened my eyes. And a lot of people around the world got in contact with me today. Said, "What's going on with this?" I don't know. I really don't know. The interesting thing will be because that's why I feel sorry for rugby league because they're flying as a sport.
Yeah.
Rugby union is not. Okay, it's not. I know we had the Lions here. But that's once every 12 years. I used to say the same to the soccer football people. You can't just rely on World Cups every 4 years. And their club scene has not been good for quite some time. They've announced a few improvements last season. They said things were up, but they didn't say up from what. So if you get 1,000 people watching your game, and all of a sudden the next year you get 2,000, you can say, well, our viewing fees are 100% up. Yeah, from 1,000 to 2,000. You can tell, are trying to do something different around the club stroke. International scene. They're going to have that Nations Championship next year. So they're going to try to do things that are a little bit different. It's ironic, isn't it? Because the Rugby Championship was probably the best it's been in 15 years this time round. But they're trying to, so I can understand that more. But Rugby League got drawn into it mainly because, like I said, the wonderful athletes that they have playing that sport.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And I can understand the NRL's point of view, particularly for contractor players. This is the thing. Like, if you've got a contract and you're breaking a contract, I can understand why the NRL are going to have hard and fast rules. For those that are off contract, I find that a little bit difficult to navigate, right? You got like someone like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who's, 31, 32, has indicated he wants to go to R360.
Yep.
Go. Good luck.
Okay. So he's at end of contract, no problem.
Go, good luck.
Have R360, Michael, have they said they will not pay any transfers? I think I saw that somewhere.
There was something. There's been some innuendo. Like, these guys are working in the shadows, right? But there was some innuendo that they weren't going to pay people to break contracts.
Right, gotcha.
Or get people
well, that's like
to break
transfer fees,
contracts,
right? Yeah.
So I think that's what they'd intimated. But whether or not that happens, I'm not sure if that's exactly going to be the case. But yeah, there's still a lot to unpack. Whether it holds up in the court of law, whether it's a scare tactic, whether it's enough to deter players. But as you said, if you're at the latter stage of your career and you're going to get a $2 million a season deal compared to 700, well, you're going. Doesn't matter, regardless of 10-year bans.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Right? If you're 22, okay.
A little bit different.
It's
So
completely different.
explain to me as well, and because a lot of people have asked me this question from around the world, and a lot of people will be listening to what we're saying now, because I said I was on with you, and I said you're pretty much all over it. Please explain the R360 concept.
I wish I could.
No, what I'm saying, as best you possibly can, right?
Look,
because what I've seen, just from a little bit of an outside point of view, this is what I'm saying, you know far more about it than me. It's, I don't know, they picked, I don't know, eight locations or 10 locations.
Yeah, so it's just going to be a travelling roadshow, essentially, right?
Right. How many teams do we know?
I think it's 6 and then into 8, I think it goes.
Right,
and then
6 into 8.
15-a-side rugby.
It is rugby,
It's
so
rugby
it is rugby.
union,
There's not going to be
not
a hybrid,
sevens, it's not sevens,
hybrid game or anything like
no
that.
Hybrid,
no,
it's sevens. They're going to bounce around in locations around the world. They're going to pay for family members to come. Imagine how expensive this would be for your family members to bounce from multiple locations.
Not if your state owns an airline, but go on.
Yes. And then a short window next year where they'll start in October.
Right.
October 1, I think, or October 2 was the kickoff date next season, and then it will transform into mid-year the following year.
Gotcha.
Okay, so October sort of works with NRL players because majority of them will have their commitments done by then. If they're
up until yesterday, did.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So 6 to 8 teams. Do we know are they going to be called like they're going to be like franchises?
Yeah,
They'll
be named after.
But it will be rugby union rules completely.
Rugby 15 aside, so not sevens.
Right.
So you need squads of.
Yeah, you need nearly
25, 30
at least, right?
So you're thinking 30, 35 players to play. So
now, I also noticed that United Arab Emirates was mentioned as where they'll be registered. Is that correct?
But no, well, there are potentials for tax ramifications. So where players want to base themselves, they have that opportunity for tax breaks. How that works,
you don't know.
I don't know.
And what do we know about then? Who is behind it? Is it private equity?
Yeah, it's private equity behind it. Yeah, it's private equity behind it.
And do we know where from?
I think they were from the UK.
I heard the UK and United States.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think largely from the UK.
Right, okay.
So.
And the destinations were like, somebody made a joke about, do you want me to go play in front of
Lisbon and stuff?
Yeah, Barcelona. So it's like that. Miami.
Yeah, Miami's one. Yeah.
Okay.
So
London? Anyone down here? New Zealand or Australia?
There's none here.
So the big news that came out today, with the exception of R360, was that Craig Bellamy possibly might be standing down within the next couple of years. He's been, 23 years at the Melbourne Storm. Done an absolutely fantastic job. and the possible replacement, they were talking about Billy Slater. So 2 questions I want to ask you.
Yes.
First, the veracity of that story. Second question on top of that, and this is coming a little bit correlating to the football side. Both Arsenal and to a greater extent Manchester United struggled after they had 2 absolutely powerhouse managers, a la Craig Bellamy in Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger. Arsenal have got their ship in order a little bit quicker than Manchester United, but although Manchester United might argue that they've won certain trophies as well. Is that going to happen with Melbourne Storm because of the fact of how long he's been there, or do you see that if they do pass the baton to Billy Slater, that it will be just a smooth transition?
Yeah, there's lots to unpack with Melbourne at the moment because obviously you've got Craig Bellamy's future. Obviously, the biggest story around the Storm at the moment is Craig Bellamy's future, but it's not the only story around the Storm. You look at the Harry Grant's about to do a new extension, right? So I feel like that's going to get done. But then you got the uncertainty around Cameron Munster, Ryan Pappenhausen, Jonah Pezzett. You've got Nelson Asafa-Solomona gone. So there's lots of change happening in Melbourne, right? Okay. So you look at that roster, and maybe Craig goes, okay, I survived post the big 3, right? I was able to rejuvenate that squad with Grant, Smith, Grant, Munster, Hughes, Pappenhausen, and around it.
Yeah, he did.
Do I have the energy, the resources, the players to potentially do that again?
Right.
Right? Yeah, and he's looking at it going, all right, well, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm gassed. Maybe this is it. But the important thing with Craig is that almost every year we have these conversations regarding his future and flirting with clubs, and there'd be a long list of clubs who believed at some point they were going to sign Craig Bellamy.
Yeah, of course.
Right? But I feel like
this a negotiating tactic from the Bellamy camp?
It's not. I don't know. I can't.
You can't say
see
that.
Right? Because he's the highest paid coach in the game probably anyway.
Yeah, he should be.
Right? So, and the Storm have basically said the job's yours for as long as you want it.
Okay.
So they're not putting any pressure on him from that point of view. If you want to stay, the job's yours. If you want to move into a different role within the club, that's yours too. So whatever you want, we're happy to accommodate.
Okay.
Right? So this is a Craig decision.
Right.
And whether or not he feels like, all right, I'm going to move to the Gold Coast for family reasons, and if he's got the energy to go, I still want to coach in the NRL. I'm still not sure of that.
Okay.
Right?
Well, what wasn't he just step upstairs and become like, I don't know, sporting
coaching
director?
Or something like
that?
They'll offer him that. The Gold Coast will offer him that. The Storm were offering
After
that.
being at the Gold Coast 2 weeks ago with a little boy for a tournament, I've got to say, it's the first time I've ever gone to anywhere in the world and thought I could retire here.
Yeah, that's
So if you're listening, Craig, why not?
Well, I think he's bought a house. That's his plans, right?
Yeah.
He's bought a house there.
It is beautiful.
His plans to finish there. So when you look at the Storm, you look at the potential successes. Obviously, Billy would be their number one choice.
Okay.
Because he's not coaching. He's coaching Queensland, but he's not affiliated with an NRL club. It'd be easy to slot him in.
But Craig has spawned a lot of not only ex-players, but ex-people who have worked underneath him, right, and become very good head coaches in their own right.
There's a long
Maguire,
list. You've got Madge, you've had Brad Arthur, you've had Craig, Adam O'Brien, you've had Kevin Walters work there, Stephen Kearney work. There's a lot of coaches that have spent time under Craig Bellamy. The other one, well, there's 2 that I haven't mentioned yet. One is Jason Rolls.
Yeah.
Who's worked a lot under Craig Bellamy. And the reason he didn't go to the Dragons was he thought he was going to be Craig Bellamy's replacement at Melbourne. Okay. Right? So that's why he rejected the Dragons, or one of the reasons he rejected the Dragons, and then Craig decided to stay on. So Riles has finally bit the bullet and go, I'm coaching Parramatta.
Yep. Okay.
Matt King's the other one, who's now an assistant coach in the
Roosters.
King,
top man.
Huge raps on him. Yeah. Huge raps on him. Was really impressive during the Origin campaign where he worked with Craig Bellamy and Frank Panisi. Played at Melbourne. Could have been the coach of Perth under Mao, but didn't want to move his family for family reasons, so he rejected that. So they're the 3 candidates. Well, Riles, it's hard to call him a candidate, right? Because he's locked in with Parramatta.
Yeah, exactly. Hands off our Riles.
They'd be the 3. They'd be the 3 names that you.
Now, can I ask you this as well? Are there compensation if you go and nab a coach in the middle of a contract from somewhere else?
Well, it has to be.
It's got to be, surely.
Has to be. You can't just let a coach walk out the door.
Like in our sport, we put a buyout clause. Like if I turn around and said, I want you, Michael, to be the coach of our team, and you go, Bozza, well, listen, I got 3 years left my contract here. I said, no problem, but I want you to agree terms with me. So we agreed terms. I said, now leave it up to me to go speak to your chairman. Your chairman is Marky, who's here with us. Now I'll turn around and say, how much for your head coach? He's going to say something stupid first, but eventually we'll come back down. As long as I got you locked away, that's the most important thing. Now, coming back to our original main topic as well, do you think that R360 will come in for any of the coaches?
Yes, because they do need to fill staff, right? But I'm not sure if it's going to be like a head coach or performance coaches.
All right, gotcha.
So there'll be coaching staff.
Because I was going to say, from a fitness perspective, there's not too many better fitness coaches in the whole world than rugby league fitness coaches.
So there'd be a crossover. So definitely they'd come to the NRL for staff. Whether it's a head coach and they could make that transition, I don't know. But there are a few. NRL coaches who have dabbled in rugby.
Can I make an early cry?
Yeah, go.
Eddie Jones will be a coach of an R360 team.
Well, it sounds like it's going that direction.
Because that just seems R360 screams Eddie Jones, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I think so. After Japan.
Well, Michael Checker's making the move over to rugby league, right, this season.
Yeah, I would love it. I'd love a side to give him a head coaching job.
Yep.
Just from I don't know him well, but I've met him and he's super impressive and he's passionate about the game. But from a journalistic perspective, I'd love the storyline of the guy that coached the Wallabies now coaching in the NRL.
What type of success record have rugby union coaches had when they've come across to rugby league?
I don't know any. The only one I know is Alan Jones.
Alan Jones, I guess, yeah. Balmain, but nothing other ones.
Les Kiss had played a lot of rugby league.
He played a lot of rugby league, didn't he?
But has done all his coaching essentially in rugby.
Yeah.
So, no, I can't think of too many that have gone and really become a
Well, Andy
head coach.
Farrell, who coached the British Lions, he was a rugby league player, I guess.
Yeah. But, and then you look at the Titans, and I just feel like no club loves a clause more than the Gold Coast Titans.
Okay.
Like, there's a clause in. Well, I'd love to know all the clauses and all the deals that they've done because
when I retire there, I'm going to buy that club and I'm going to make them champions of Australia. They're going to surpass Panthers 4 and they're going to get 5 straight. So there you go.
5 straight.
Yeah, 5 straight.
Yeah. Can you hire me? I'll work.
Yeah, I will. No worries.
There you go.
There you go. You can come up every weekend. There we go.
Us on the run home is respected football analyst and co-host of the ROZ podcast alongside Ed Cavalier and Adam Peacock. James Dodd, welcome to the run home, mate.
Afternoon, Doddsy.
Hello, gents. Good to speak to you, Bozza. Good to speak to you, my friend.
Great to speak to you as well. How's your beloved Arsenal? Are you happy with them being on top of the table?
Is anyone you don't know?
No,
we just lined up everyone that you know.
Are you happy, Doddsy, with your beloved Arsenal?
Yeah, listen, I feel like for the first time in a very long time, I actually came into this season thinking I actually believe they would win the league this season.
Okay.
Listen, it's only seven games in, but I feel like maybe I'm putting that pressure on them because they've spent so much money and they've got such a good squad now. It's probably a massive failure if they don't do it. But listen, 7 games in, Boz, I'm going to sound like a proper professional athlete and a professional footballer and say it's one game at a time.
All right, no, fair enough. That's a fair point. But I'm with you. I think Liverpool spent the most out of everyone, but Arsenal were a very close second. In terms of the actual squad, and it's so important. I mean, Odegaard's got injured again, right? In terms of the actual squad, with the amount of games and competitions that they got, I think they've got, man for man, the best squad and the best depth. Now, nothing's guaranteed. Like I said, it's such a long season. There's so many games to play. But so far, so good. The only thing I will say is this, that games against their 2 biggest rivals, Liverpool and Manchester City, yielded 1 point out of 6. So that's the only thing I will say to you. But let's talk about the A-League, which begins tomorrow night from 7, I think it's 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. I'm going to explain why that is. Somebody actually texted in from Queensland to explain like that. Adelaide take on Sydney FC, and then later on, 2 hours later, Brisbane take on Macarthur. First of all, let's talk about the opening night, and then let's go into what your dark horses are and what your favourites are, ones to look out for in terms of the whole season, Doddsy.
Yeah, so I reckon Adelaide-Sydney is a really interesting one, right? Because the last few games between these sides have basically Adelaide haven't beaten Sydney in the last 3, especially at Coopers. So. Right. But you know what it's like with the A-League, Boz? The teams can look so different season on season. Right? There's been a lot of change. I mean, if you look at Sydney FC's squad, for example, last season of the 5 visa players that they had, only Joe Lolly's the one that's left. They've got rid of the other 4 for various different reasons. So they've brought in some good talent from Spain. Victor Campesano as an attacker who's played he was scouted for Real Madrid's youth team at one point. He's played in La Liga for a long time. They've got Marcel Tisserand, who's a Congolese international defender who was born and raised in. Yeah, so Marcel looks like he's a really good acquisition for them. Basically, what they were lacking last year is that kind of leader in their defence, because the way they played, they were so open, and whilst the defenders were made to look like they were the problem last year, I think it was mainly the tactics that they weren't defending well enough as a team. So they're going to be an interesting proposition this year. And Adelaide, they've got Craig Goodwin back. I think it's his 4th stint at Adelaide now, so maybe he's back for good this time. But there's someone in charge in Ayrton Andrioli who has you would know what it's like as a former player, Boz. You can have someone that can step up from within, but whether they can command the respect as a first team coach straight away, despite him having such a good reputation as a youth team coach down there in Adelaide, whether or not he can get his messages across and can kind of take over from Cole Viet and either revolutionise the way they're going to play or just command that respect from the dressing room. It's going to be very interesting to see. But that promises to be a really enticing battle between those two. And then You got Brisbane. Michael Valkanis is in charge of Brisbane Roar now, up against a MacArthur side that have strengthened really well in the off-season. They've recruited some good players, but everything that I'm hearing about Brisbane is that they are going to be really hard and difficult to play against this season. They had a pre-season friendly with Sydney FC that was supposed to be played for an extra 30 minutes just to get some minutes in the legs, and the referee decided to call it because he got a little bit too fiery up there. I think they played it on the Sunshine Coast. So there was a few challenges going in. There was a few players being offered out in the car park afterwards. So they look like they've really got the bit between their teeth. And Michael Valkanis is, wants to lay down a marker for them this year, saying that 12th place finish out of 13 wasn't good enough for a club of Brisbane Roar stature last year. So it's going to be very interesting between those two to see who comes out on top. But hopefully you can get some crowd and some decent numbers back in at Suncorp Stadium, because they do need it.
100%. And I will say this, and that's for everybody specifically living in Queensland. After winning the AFL, after winning the NRL and the ladies' competitions as well, if they happen to win the A-League as well, Origin. I'm leaving. Yeah, and the Origin. Yeah. I think it's time that we all move to Queensland just for 1 year out of respect for Queensland sport. Like everyone, the whole country.
Speak for yourself.
No, everyone, the whole country, just move up there just for 1 year. Just for 1 year, out of respect for them.
Do all the Queenslanders move out?
No. We just go. We just invade like en masse. Yeah, just to turn around and go out of respect for you. Yeah,
bow down. We have to bow down to them.
And listen, last year, obviously Melbourne City, Dodsey won the grand final, but the minor premiers, like the champion of the season, as I call them, was Auckland. How are those two teams going to fare this season, in your opinion?
Yeah, so that's a really intriguing one, because if you look at, let's start with Auckland, right? Obviously, they were first season for them in the competition last year.
Amazing,
Steve Corica, I'm sure, is a man you know really well. Yep. Bozza, he's a good coach. He had a great career with Sydney FC as both as a player and a coach, and he had the benefit really of essentially playing fantasy football last season, because he was able to build a squad from scratch. He was able to recruit every single player that he wanted to his specifications. So all of those players, bar two of them, one of which was Alex Paulson, who was outstanding in goal last year, has gone back to Bournemouth and then to Poland on loan, so he's not there this year.
Wow, okay.
But bar a couple of players, every single player remains, which is so unusual in the A-League era. Yeah. So you'd think they're going to be very strong this year. And then if you look at Melbourne City, they've got two things that I'd be looking at and questioning this year with them. The first is that they're going to have to juggle playing in the A-League and in the Asian Champions League, which is not going to be particularly easy for them, given that we know the struggles that Aussie teams have had in that competition over the years, especially given they've got such a young squad, right? And the second is the fact that they have lost a lot of talent from last season. I mean, even look at someone like Jimmy Jago's retired. Matt Leckie's injury problems are kind of surfaced a little bit again, and you're wondering how many games he's going to be able to play this season. Marco Tilio's not at the club anymore. Jonathan Cohen, who scored the winner in the grand final, he's left the club as well. So they've got a really, really good, talented crop of youngsters at Melbourne City who have also had to play so many games last season. It means they've kind of swam with the Sharks and they're ready. They know what to expect this year. They're going to be ready a season on. So that's going to be really interesting for Melbourne City. I actually think they might fall a little bit lower than many people are tipping this year, just because of that juggling of the two competitions. But Auckland, I think, are many people's favourites, and rightly so, given that they've just got that consistency and the stability from having pretty much the exact same squad from last season.
And my beloved Western Sydney Wanderers, talk to me.
You know what, Stadge, I was out at the Wanderers last week doing some filming for the A-League, and they've, what I think might stand them in good stead this year, Boz, is that they've basically got a load of players that know exactly what is required in terms of A-League's experience. Like they've got Steven Ugarkovic, who's come in as a champion with Melbourne City last year. Costa Barbarouses has come in. Alu Kuol knows what it's like to play in the league. Whether he starts or not, I'm not entirely sure. I think it'll probably be Barbarouses and Borello as a front two. But Angus Thurgate finished second in the Johnny Warren medal running last year. He's in good form. He's coming to the Wanderers as well. They've got a great defensive partnership. As you know, they've got a great goalkeeper in Lawrence Thomas. So for me, I think they're going to be pushing whoever's at the top. If it's not the Wanderers, I think the Wanderers will be very close this year, because they've just got such an A-League ready squad. They haven't had too many foreign players that are going to come in that are going to need to adapt and settle in. They're going to, in theory, they should hit the ground running. And it's a great game at Western Sydney out in Combank Stadium on Saturday night, because it is the Wanderers against Melbourne City.
Wow, huge.
James, what have you made of the Socceroos' last couple of performances heading into the World Cup?
Yes, James.
Do you know what? It's actually really interesting, because obviously whilst I am English, I'm an Aussie. I'm a citizen. So
that's why we're asking you, James. So we want to hear what you want to say.
So I think we've seen from the Socceroos exactly what we're going to see from the Socceroos at the World Cup, regardless of who's in their group. I think Tony Popovic has been using this exact template, which, let's be honest, that sometimes looks like 5 at the back when they're out of possession.
Nothing wrong with that.
So, exactly. Nothing wrong with it. They look very solid. They look like they can soak up a lot of pressure. I mean, listen, we saw Leicester City do this when they won the Premier League. Now,
100%.
I don't mean the Socceroos will win the World Cup, but we know exactly what to expect from them. And listen, he's gone 12 games into his Socceroos tenure, and he's lost 1 game, which was the first one in a friendly against the USA. So I think we know exactly what we're going to expect from the Socceroos. They're going to be very well organised. They're going to be really hard to beat. And with young players that have got pace to burn, like Kunda and Mo Toure and the rest, they're going to be really dangerous on the counter-attack. And I think they're going to be an uncomfortable proposition for a lot of teams who come up against the Socceroos, who, whilst they know exactly how they're going to play, stopping them from hurting them at the other end is going to be really difficult. So some people don't like it. Some people want to see like an all-out expansive football like Ange Postecoglou. Other people like to see what Popper has to do. And to be honest, you can't argue with his record.
No, I'm with you, James, as well. And just to add something to all the doubters, France won the 2018 World Cup. They beat Croatia rather luckily in the final. I was saying. Anyway, they won the 2018 World Cup in Russia with basically averaging less than 45% possession per game. So there you go. Yeah, yes, they'll turn around and say you had Kylian Mbappe as one of those players. Okay, but it just goes to show in our sport, and I think you'd probably say this for a lot of sports. Let's put it in this way: there are many ways to skin a cat. As simple as that. There are many ways to go about winning. Whether you like it or not, understandably so, but the bottom line is at the very top levels, I keep trying to say to everybody, there's different levels, but at the very top level, it's about results.
Yeah, completely agree. And if you look at that tournament as a prime example, everyone was talking about Kylian Mbappe, the player who started every game in that tournament. I think for France was Olivier Giroud as their starting centre forward, and he didn't score a single goal in the tournament. Yet they still managed to win the World Cup. So it's about how you do it and the people you've got and getting the best out of the people you've got.
There you go. Right. Absolutely spot on.
Plenty to be excited about for football fans. A-League action happening.
Watching out for you, Dodsy.
Thank you, James. Good luck and enjoy the A-League season.
Thanks, guys. Great to speak to you.
Thank you so much. Great to speak to you too, mate. Yeah.
What, you're still here? Well, you can see more on the Joel and Fletch socials and catch us live on SEN Radio, you beautiful humans.